Yo, aren't you a week late for this? Yeah, but I'm probably months late for this idea. Anyways, you're not worried about me. Setsuka was released in Soul Calibur 6 last week. She's originally from Soul Calibur 3. She was in Soul Calibur 4. If you haven't heard about her, you probably don't keep up with Soul Calibur because she's a pretty popular character. Lover or hater, doesn't matter which side of the fence you're on. If you ever looked at like any fan polling, you just ask any casual or most casual people like what character, name a character that you would expect to see in Soul Calibur 6 or even in 5 when 5 was a thing because they didn't want no alpha pat. It would always be talking about Setsuka. Here she is. She's still pretty similar to how she was in 4. And I'm saying this as a person who actually didn't play her in 4. One of my good sparring partners, Laswaga, aka Kuja is Love, played a good amount of Setsuka, so I quote unquote know Setsuka by proxy, if you will. And from what I knew without going back to look at 4, a lot of Setsuka is still there. Still has a lot of just frames, still has the hallmark Shade Buster, or Umbrella as it's called. Still has her 4 BB just frames, 1 AA, like all the just frames. And while I'm thinking about 4 BB and 1 AAA, let me stop and go to a side real quick. The one thing that they didn't put in the game, which is actually pretty disappointing to me, is they didn't get the same English voice actor with Bloom and Fall, Wither and Die. Yeah, that ain't here. So I switched that immediately back to the subs. We weren't running those dubs. But yeah, Setsuka seems pretty familiar, or I'm assuming she'll be very familiar to OG Setsuka players, but that doesn't mean that she didn't get any new things in Soul Calibur 6. And I mean, some people will probably think that, especially with the lackluster trailer that they had of her. And I'm sorry if you thought the trailer was good, they didn't show too many new things. Everybody was saying it, but she actually has an entire. Well, she has a couple new mechanics, but she has a new system, the Vision system, with, and I'm gonna have to double check this and still be wrong, the Wintry Vision, Moonlit Vision, and Vernal Vision. Vernal meaning spring. I actually looked it up when I was on stream because I was like, what is this word? Basically, she gets rewarded for hitting people at different times, hitting them for moving or just straight up not blocking, uh, hitting them for a whiff punish, or hitting them for a counter hit, respectively. I might have 2 and 3 wrong. And when she fills out the meter for whichever one she's doing, she gets enhancements to some of her moves. It's actually kind of cool. She also has some new stances. She has, I think it's called Wings of Heaven. It's there's 2 heaven ones. One of the ones is the old jump that she had, and then she has a new one where she actually opens her umbrella and she floats for a second. Then she has a quick draw stance. I forget the name of the quick draw stance, but she has a quick draw stance. She has new stuff to play with. A lot of people who messed around with her, or let me be more specific. I've looked on social media and people have been saying that she is easier to play than she was before. I don't specifically know if this is because you don't have to do the just frames to get the effects. Cause I don't remember if that was the case or not in 4. I just remember that there was a bunch of just frames and stuff happening. Uh, or if they were only tied to damage. They're only tied to damage now, but I still think she's on the higher end of execution in the grand scheme of things because she can churn out a good bit of damage, like a very very solid bit of damage, but it requires a good amount of execution that you don't need for, I would dare say, anybody else in the cast. I think I can just cover myself by saying the majority of the cast. I did take the time to go through a combo video that came out very shortly after she released, and there's some things that'll take some sit down and grind time to get consistent for some people. I'll drop that down. You know how this will go, or you'll learn how this goes real quick. I know this is still kind of new, uh, but needless to say, she is a good example of a modernized, uh, accessible character in my books. Whereas she's not made in a way to where you just flat out cannot play the character if you don't have the execution, but you get rewarded if you can or if you're willing to learn. Um, but getting past the buttons, she still fits into Soul Calibur 6 very well because they made sure to give her a decent amount of the Soul Calibur 6 specific mechanics. What are you talking about? Lethal hits, soul charge moves. Obviously, they're going to give those to her, but one of the things that needs to be looked at when a new character comes in is like how useful their soul charge moves. I can't honestly judge that, but she gets more damage in places where she would normally find hits, so that's just good across the board in my eyes. And the more important thing is her lethal hits are pretty practical. Not only are they practical, she has some lethal hits from some really common hallmark things. So things that Setsuka would be doing before, or that she's always done, she will get a bigger reward if she calls somebody in the right place. That's the kind of thing I imagine Setsuka players really like, unless they're the ones that just like umbrella, shade buster, but we ain't worried about those. All in all, she looks pretty good. She looks pretty good. Looks pretty cool for what little bit I know. Aside from the little joke I made earlier, the only other little like imperfection that I would have about her out the gate is just a personal visual issue, which is with her new jacket, in which she has a sporty new jacket like the old anime over the shoulders jacket. She's one of those characters that's kind of hard to tell which way she's facing. Now again, I've only looked at her twice. Pretty sure that'll go away after maybe a week's of time, maybe a couple weeks of time. But just out the gate, there's a couple of moments where I was sitting in training mode messing around with something, and I'm like paused to look at something, and I look back, and I would do something like either forward or back turn. I'm like, why did it not work? Oh, because I'm not facing the way I thought I was. But yeah, it's not a big deal. You ain't worried about that. You worried about Setsuka, and you got everything you need. So I'm gonna clip it, I'm gonna ship it, and you gonna go play some Soul Calibur 6. We out of here. Peace.